All right. Hi guys. How's everybody doing?
Hi, sir. How are you?
Um, Elasticity related questions have been coming every other year, and before 2023 भी आते रहे हैं, but the way the kids are answering this question is strange. They hardly are able to get marks, especially for the 12 marker. So even if we're gonna attempt some 12 markers and some 8 markers. 8 markers are much more relatively easier to gain marks in, but it's the 12 marker where we are really seeing kids struggling. So, just to give a very quick recap, जब हम elasticities की बात करते हैं, the first thing we need to understand is just what is a general uh, definition of what elasticity is. You know how when we're talking about demand curve, we say, okay, if price goes up, quantity demanded is going to fall down, and if price is going to fall, quantity demanded is going to rise. A lot of times, kids actually write, "Okay, this is what elasticity is." This is not elasticity. This is just simply law of demand. Elasticity is about by how much the quantity will respond. अगर आप पीडी पढ़ रहे हो तो how much will quantity respond to change in the price? अगर आप income elasticity of demand पढ़ रहे हैं तो how much will quantity respond to a change in income? So basically, if you want to say what is elasticity, what is general definition of elasticity, we say that it measures the responsiveness in the change in quantity demanded due to change in a variable. Change in a variable. A PD के अंदर you have come across three kinds of elasticity. One is called price elasticity of demand, जिसके अंदर you're measuring by how much quantity will respond if there is a change in the price. Simple. Then you have income elasticity of demand, which basically measures by how much quantity will respond if there is a change in income, right? And lastly, we have something called cross elasticity of demand, which measures by how much quantity will respond for good X due to change in the price of good Y. So, in short, PED is more about necessity versus luxury. ये मैं बहुत जनरल बता रहा हूँ, but there is more to it, obviously. But if you want to like बिल्कुल sort of like एक broad categories में बात करनी है, income elasticity talks about normal versus inferior goods. We've talked about this before also. And cross elasticity purely talks about substitutes and complements. And we've spoken about them also. If a price of one substitute good changes, how will it affect the uska substitute good? Will it have a big effect? Will it have a small effect? एक तो मेन ये हो गई आपकी elasticity. All three of them are demand related. Then there is one which is supply related, जिसको आप कहते हैं price elasticity of supply. So let me just mention it here. Price elasticity of, okay, yeah, now it writes. Price elasticity of supply. This is where kids really, really struggle. I don't think इस साल तुम्हारा पीएस के ऊपर आना चाहिए वैसे तो. I believe लास्ट अक्टूबर के अंदर आ चुका है ये prediction. But what it measures is that by how much producers' ability to supply will affect when there is a change in the price. So you have for this one, you have to completely switch your mind. And now you're not thinking as a producer, but you're thinking, sorry, as a consumer, but you're thinking as a producer. So we'll have a few questions on this and we're going to answer this. एक तो ये बेसिक हो गया what it's about. ठीक है? फिर इसके बाद one of the major things you need to know about these is what does the word elastic means and what does the word inelastic means. ठीक है? Basically, if there is a big response in quantity versus change in price, but in fact, you can actually give a concrete thing that if there is a big change in the quantity versus whatever your variable is, you call it elastic. And if the change in quantity is smaller, then whatever the variable is, variable matlab ke change in the price of other good, income, price, right? तो जो भी दूसरे वेरिएबल के अंदर इफेक्ट होगा, if there's a big change in quantity, elastic, small change, inelastic. Now this is a simpler thing. अब जो इसको थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स करते हैं तो ज्यादातर हमने देखा है पीईडी के केस के अंदर you have certain factors that affects the elasticities. Uh, we narrow it down to four major ones. Okay. One is the availability of substitutes. Okay. Second is the attractiveness of substitutes. The third is the proportion of income a good takes. Proportion of income a good takes. And the fourth one is time period. If you want to write about more, be my guest. There are plenty more that you can talk about. Bamford ke andar mainly these four are discussed. Marking scheme mein these four are mainly talked about. You can go on and you can talk about, luxury, necessity. You can talk about um, in terms of broader category or a much more वैसे तो ये attractiveness और availability के अंदर ये सारी चीजें आ जाती हैं. Even sometimes we teach number of uses of a good. If certain goods have a lot of uses, they become very essential in comparison to goods that might not. Like for example, watch, the hand watch that we wear. Agar it's a smartwatch, it has a lot of uses. It might become more inelastic for people, but those other ones, which you don't really need for time purposes, also you just wear it for fashion related reasons. तो वो उसके uses क्या हैं? एक time बताता है, एक date बताता है, एक day बताता है. People are mostly aware of these things anyways. So it's more of a fashion statement. So fewer uses mean the good is elastic. If price changes, people respond buy more. फिर उसके अलावा जब हम पीईएस के फैक्टर्स की बात करते हैं, so we just want to narrow it down to a couple of them. One is availability of stock. If you have stock available, you can easily change the quantity. Then it can be about the time period. In short run, supply tends to be inelastic. You can't find resources in the short run or change resources in the short run so easily, but in the long run you can. For example, if price of tomatoes go up, can producers increase the supply this season? Probably not, right? But in the long run, they can acquire more land, they can grow more, and they can have more supply in the future. फिर time period के बाद maybe like you can talk about uh, the percentage of total cost. If something takes a large percentage of your cost, then it becomes elastic. If something takes a smaller percentage, then it becomes inelastic. So we can talk about this. And even one of good ones would be ease ease of substitution of factors of production. How easily can you replace the labor with machines? If it's easy, then it becomes elastic, but if it's difficult, then it becomes inelastic. So we might need to talk about these. तो ये आपके कुछ factors of production के बारे में बात हो जाती है. ठीक है. But I feel this is not where the problem really starts. The problem comes when we talk about the use of these goods, when we're talking about different goods and services. So let me bring some questions up. Uh, we'll talk with, let's start with basic elasticity scale. A good, simpler question I think we can start off with is a simple eight marker. Okay, this is a good one. March 24, paper 22, paper 21. Let's do that one. Okay. Let me start with, um, in fact, let me start with June 25, PED, because I know most of you have done PED. This question came in June 25, variant 24. Now, this is a new variant, by the way. So let's take a look at this one. Please take a minute and read this question, and let's answer this. What's the procedure behind answering a question like this? Okay. So remember, for an eight marker, you have to break down. This is June 25, variant 24, question 2A. It says, with the help of a formula, explain the meaning of price elasticity of demand and consider the significance to a firm of having price elastic or price inelastic demand for its product. Okay, this is a simpler one. You have assessment objective one about knowledge and understanding, 3 marks. Usually you get your 3 marks over here. फॉर्मूला का 1 मार्क होगा, डेफिनेशन का कुछ मार्क होना चाहिए, और मे बी इलास्टिक इन इलास्टिक के मीनिंग का मतलब होना चाहिए. You'll get 1 mark for elastic and inelastic explanation. Then you have assessment objective 2, which is about analysis. You get about 3 marks for it. फॉर्म के लिए क्या सिग्निफिकेंस है इसकी. And then finally, your assessment objective 3, which is about evaluation, and you get about 2 marks. I will not worry much about evaluations right now, but later on, we must, figure out a way to write a good evaluation. So, पहली चीज क्या करेंगे? पहली चीज हम फॉर्मूला लिख लेंगे. फॉर्मूला क्या होता है? We want to explain what PED is about. So the first thing I would recommend, always be bookish with these definitions. There's not much definitions you have to remember, but PED measures the responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price. Okay? So you get 1 mark for this. So simple. फिर उसके बाद you have to write the formula. So your formula is, I think आपको पूरा लिखना चाहिए, लेकिन honestly I would give you mark even if you do it in abbreviation terms. Percentage change in quantity demanded, divided by percentage change in price. ऑनेस्टली मेरे सेशन के अंदर ही आ जाता तो मेरे ख्याल में तो if kids had written this ना I would have given them marks. I would not have cared unless the examiner would have specifically told us कि आप इसको नहीं दें. मेरे ख्याल के अंदर तो everybody would have given mark for this. So I think be safe just in case you never know. We would write the whole thing. फिर उसके बाद because question के अंदर later on there is a discussion required about elastic and inelastic. I would recommend you to do both. In fact थोड़ा सा डिटेल के अंदर जरूर बताया करो. अगर हम प्राइस इलास्टिक के बारे में बता रहे हैं तो it is a must that you must say that if the demand curve is price elastic, what it means is that the percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in price, and the PED key value is greater than 1. If you only write this, PED is greater than 1, and not write this, you're in trouble. I'm not going to give you the mark. And not only this, but you need to have both of them correct to get the maximum mark. No such thing as vice versa. Price inelastic ka meaning would be that the percentage change in quantity demanded would be less than the percentage change in price, and that means that the PED value should be less than 1. So it's a must that you do this. And the way marking would be done is I'll give you 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this, and 1 mark for writing both of that. So it's a simple question in that way. फिर वो बात करते हैं consider the significance to a firm of having price elastic or price inelastic demand. Um, मेरी नजर में what needs to be talked about over here is for analysis purposes, you have to write both the things. I don't know how the mark will be given, but I think this is how the mark should be given. 1 mark इस बात पे होगा for your analysis. If you write that if PED is elastic and if the price increases, yeah, if the price increases, what we know is that the percentage change in price will be less. A percentage rise in price will be smaller than the percentage fall in the quantity demanded. There's going to be a bigger fall in quantity demanded. There's going to be a smaller increase in the price. And this will lead for the firm's revenue, because at the end of the day, the entire discussion about elasticity of demand is about revenue. So your revenue in this case, in the case of elastic, if price goes up, your revenue is going to fall down. I think that's what the discussion should be about. Agar graphically you understand, then this is what I'm saying. If the demand curve is elastic, you can actually use the diagram. You're not going to get marked for it, just making the diagram. What you're going to get marked for it is अगर आपने diagram के साथ आपने write-up लिखा है, and that write-up actually helps you explain the idea, that's only when you're getting the mark. So if the price goes up, there's a small increase in the price, there's a very large fall in the quantity. Your original revenue was this much, PO into QO. This is what your revenue was, right? And if the price increases, now your new revenue is this, okay? Let me make sure that the color changes. Yeah, now it's better. So if you notice, because of the price rise, there is a small increase in the revenue, the new revenue. But because of the quantity fall, there is a big fall in the quantity. So you're basically losing much. So there's more of loss in the revenue than the gain in the revenue. So the revenue falls. Don't do the diagram, just do the write-up. Just explain in terms of that the percentage rise in the price is lesser than the percentage fall in the quantity demanded. So therefore, the firm's revenue will fall. That's good enough. You're gonna get 1 mark for it. ठीक हो गया? फिर उसके बाद your another mark is going to be if you write about uh, elastic के अंदर price fall का if you write about it. That if you say, however, if PED is inelastic, I'm just thinking कि इसके ऊपर mark मिलना चाहिए कि नहीं मिलना चाहिए. If PED is inelastic, yeah, inelastic का तो definitely मिलेगा. And if the price goes up, we know that the percentage rise in the price is greater than the percentage fall in the quantity demanded. Okay, again, through diagram, if I had to explain this idea, this is what my diagram looks like. The demand curve is much more steeper. And if the price rises, if you do the diagram, make sure that you do every single label in your diagram. You don't do that, then your diagram is not correct. But if the price rises, we can clearly see that the gain that we're getting is greater than the loss of quantity fall, na? So there's more gain this area. This is my gain area. This is the gain area is more than the loss. If you have difficulty, ये मैं gain loss क्या कर रहा हूँ? I've explained this very thoroughly, well in my lectures. So you can take a look at this, and at the end, you must make the connection that if the price is rising, then revenue is going to rise as well. So you're going to get a mark for this. So let me just see the marking scheme for a second. So this is what is happening. Let's go over the marking scheme for a second. So in the scheme, they're saying for this question, this is what they're saying in the marking scheme. Uh, Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price. Wow. They're not even giving a mark for definition. Oh no, now I understand what's the problem with this marking scheme. This is pre-standardization ki marking scheme. Now, that's why it's so strange. Pre-standardization means that this was the marking scheme which was made before the examiners sat down after the examination when the examiners sit down and they have a meeting with each other and then they agree on a particular marking scheme. So this one is pre-standardization that this was made before the idea. But in fact, let me make a comparison, ताकि I can actually show you that what a pre-standardization and what a post-standardization would actually look like. What kind of a difference can happen? And this one, by the way, happens once the examination has taken place, by the way. And then when the examiners sit together and they come up with a marking scheme. So this is how that one is going to look like. Let me show you. Just give me 1 second. Okay, let's take a look at it. These are the two marking schemes. The right one is the published one, which is the more formal one, and the left one is when the question was made and the examiner, the first head examiner, the marking scheme he made. So you can clearly see the difference. In pre-standardization, they were interested in giving out marks. सिर्फ फॉर्मूला लिखने के if you've written like a percentage change in quantity demanded you get 1 mark, percentage change अगर लिखा हुआ है तो you get 1 mark, और price लिखा हुआ है तो you get 1 mark. Just for writing the formula, basically you get a mark. Then they realized that this was too ridiculous. We can't do that. So this is what they did then. 1 mark is for your definition of what PED means, responsiveness in quantity demanded due to change in price, then 1 mark for correct formula, and then 1 mark for elastic or inelastic को in terms of किसमें बड़ा change आएगा, किसमें smaller change आएगा. I think this is much more nicer, but इसने threshold definitely गिराया होगा. फिर उसके बाद analysis के अंदर initially their idea was that in the analysis, an analysis of the importance of the distinction between price elastic demand for a good, uh, if demand for a product is price elastic, a fall in the price will increase the revenue. We spoke about that, so 1 mark for that. Agar it's inelastic, then the demand of the product is inelastic, a fall in the price would lead to reduction in the revenue. I think they would accept क्या price rise, price fall कुछ भी लिख लें. And to increase revenue when demand for a product is price inelastic, a firm should increase prices. Okay, ji. Uh, so pretty much analysis is not different. थोड़ा सा उन्होंने systematic कर लिया for examiner, for assistant examiners. कि अगर analysis of the impact of price or of rising or falling prices on the demand for a product. Now, notice they're not saying revenue. Okay. That means कि if you only make the comparison also ना कि if price rises, quantity demanded में बड़ा change आएगा of the falling, I think they would actually accept that also. Revenue was not uh, the major thing. इम्पैक्ट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, बट अगर मीटिंग के अंदर आई थिंक दे शुड हैव मेड द कनेक्शन कि आपने रेवेन्यू जरूर लिखना है. यहाँ पे इन्होंने ओपन एंडेड छोड़ा है. हमेशा इलास्टिसिटी और प्राइस चेंज की बात हो, मेक श्योर यू कनेक्ट इट विद द रेवेन्यू और एक्सपेंडिचर, दोनों इज द सेम थिंग. फिर राइज और फॉलिंग 1 मार्क इन इलास्टिक के केस में, राइजिंग और फॉलिंग इलास्टिक के केस के अंदर, सो यू गेट 2 marks फॉर दैट. And then they say analysis of the effects of both rising and falling on the demand curve for both elastic and inelastic. All right. So then your third mark is actually uh, they are giving on the condition कि जहां आपने यहां पे प्राइस राइज का लिखा है तो मेक श्योर कि इलास्टिक के केस के अंदर आप प्राइस फॉल का भी लिखें कि जो परसेंटेज fall in the price होगा that will be smaller than the percentage rise in the quantity demanded, और उसकी वजह से जो है आपका जो रेवेन्यू है वो राइज कर जाएगा. सो प्राइस फॉल के अंदर द रेवेन्यू विल राइज. Just by writing this, you're not going to get your third mark. You must make sure कि तुम price fall के साथ भी you talk about the whole thing, that if the price falls, in case of an inelastic के case में, if the price falls, we know that the percentage fall in quantity, in price will be greater than the percentage rise in the quantity demanded, and that will cause the revenue to fall, uh, right? So, ye connection. Uh, you get yourself 3 marks for doing all of that. So, I think मेरा ख्याल के अंदर यहाँ पे भी कुछ मार्क्स बच्चों के जरूर कटे होंगे. At least 1 mark जरूर कटा होगा. And then your final evaluation. So, what was the original and what was the new evaluation? So let's take a look at the evaluation. Evaluation के अंदर offers a valid judgment on the importance of the distinction between price elastic or price inelastic for a firm's very vague one. Let's see if the published one has something better. The usually valuation में कोई ज़्यादा changes आते नहीं हैं. Okay. That offers a valid judgment on the importance of the distinction between price elastic or price inelastic demand for determining the impact on price changes. Yeah, nothing much major. One mark for assessing what a firm should do to influence demand and spending when demand is elastic, and one mark for assessing what they should do to influence demand spending when. Okay, this is what the evaluation they're looking for. The final evaluation for this one is, so you're going to write in evaluation, right? In evaluation, if the good is price elastic, then firm should lower its price, and that will lead to a rising total revenue. Whereas if the good is inelastic, then firm should raise its price so its revenue rises. तो ये आपकी evaluation है इसकी basically कि once you've made the discussion, once you've made the analysis, because remember the question is significance to a firm of having price elastic or price inelastic demand. So obviously क्योंकि हम revenue से connection बना रहे हैं पूरे केस के अंदर, तो this is one easy way. I can actually think in terms of firm का पूरा analysis, discussion and final evaluation from tax point of view भी हो सकता है कि firm के लिए ये knowledge क्यों important हो सकती है कि अगर गवर्नमेंट ने टैक्स लगा दे या फर्म के ऊपर और उनका गुड इन इलास्टिक है तो उनको पता है कि हम कंज्यूमर के ऊपर ज्यादा टैक्स पुश कर सकते हैं और अगर इलास्टिक है तो हमें पता है कि हमें अपने प्रोडक्ट की इलास्टिसिटी को चेंज करना पड़ेगा ताकि कंज्यूमर पे बर्डन पुश हो सके. So around that line you can do that, but the simpler discussion is always around your connection with revenue. When you talk about firm, we want to talk about the revenues. ठीक हो गया? So this is one good, easy question that has come on this topic. Um, Let me discuss another one, a simpler one, जिसके अंदर I think we'll talk about जिसके अंदर सिर्फ और सिर्फ इनकम इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ डिमांड की बात हुई भी हो. फिर मैं इनकम और क्रॉस को दोनों को साथ लेकर आ सकता हूँ. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The next question that I want to solve one is income elasticity of demand related. ये आया है आपका 24 के अंदर, मार्च 24, वेरिएंट 22. This is March 24, probably variant 22. Yeah, let's take a look at this question. ठीक है जी. So let's read the question. Let's take a minute and read and think. Please think. AO1 किस तरीके से मार्क उठाएंगे, AO2 किस तरह से मार्क उठाएंगे और AO3 में किस तरह से मार्क उठाएंगे. So, with the help of a formula, explain the meaning of income elasticity of demand. Very similar to what we just did. and consider the extent to which a rise in income will increase the consumption for all goods and services. तो if we were to break down, सबसे पहले तो आपके वही 3 मार्क किस तरीके से हम दे रहे हैं. आई सी समथिंग कि इसके अंदर फॉर्मूला का मार्क होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए. बट आई थिंक इसके अंदर दिस अ लॉट मोर इंफॉर्मेशन एक्चुअली व्हाट आई वुड हैव गिवन फॉर AO1. देखें जी, सबसे पहले योर डेफिनेशन. ठीक है, व्हाट इज आवर डेफिनेशन ना. सबसे पहले तो डेफिनेशन ये है कि जो आपका इनकम इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ डिमांड है, सो इनकम इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ डिमांड का बेसिकली अब्रीविएशन है YED. इनकम के लिए आप थ्रू आउट इकोनॉमिक्स में वाई यूज कर सकते हैं. YED measures the responsiveness. ठीक है, it measures the responsiveness in quantity demand due to, or yeah, responsiveness in demand due to change in income. That's our formula. You should get 1 mark for it. Maybe they might decide not to give you. लेकिन इनकम इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ डिमांड का तो डेफिनेटली फॉर्मूला है दैट देयर इज अ परसेंटेज चेंज इन क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड ओवर परसेंटेज चेंज इन इनकम. यहाँ बच्चे आदत में ना प्राइस लिख देते हैं, तो प्लीज मेक श्योर यू डोंट डू दैट. By the way, even if you write it in words, now percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price, yes, slash percentage change in income, sorry, that will also be fine. फिर इसके बाद तीसरा मार्क किस चीज का होना चाहिए? Should we give you the third mark for writing elastic or inelastic, or should we talk about normal and inferior? I would actually do both, just in case, because I'm not sure कि वो इलास्टिक पे ज्यादा कीन होंगे या नॉर्मल इंफीरियर, बिकॉज मुझे पता है मैंने करना दोनों ही है. इवेंचुअली मेरे क्वेश्चन के अंदर उसका डिस्कशन तो आना ही है. सो एक जो चीज मैं बोलूंगा वो मैं ये कहूंगा कि अगर YED की वैल्यू ग्रेटर देन 1 है, ठीक है, what that means is that the percentage change in quantity demanded is bigger than the percentage change in income, because ये income elastic की बात हो रही है. ये तीनों चीजें आप जरूर लिखा करें जब आप इनकम इलास्टिक को एक्सप्लेन कर रहे हो. दिस इज द वर्ड, दिस इज द डेफिनेशन, एंड दिस इज द कोएफिशिएंट रिलेटेड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ इट. फिर YED अगर लेस देन 1 है, तो यू टॉक अबाउट परसेंटेज चेंज इन क्वांटिटी डिमांडेड इज लेस देन द परसेंटेज चेंज इन इनकम. एंड इनकम जो है वो इनइलास्टिक है. अगर इनकम इनइलास्टिक है तो दिस इज व्हाट विल हैपन. इसके अलावा व्हाट शुड आई टॉक अबाउट? Question is about consider the extent to which a rise in income will have an effect on all types of goods. Okay. इसके अलावा knowledge and understanding में more ideas that I can talk about is this. अगर YED की वैल्यू greater than 0 है, what it means is अगर YED की वैल्यू पॉजिटिव है, ठीक है, what does that mean? पहले तो मैं ऊपर आपको फॉर्मूला के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से बता दूं. इफ इनकम गोज अप एंड डिमांड गोज अप, दोनों वैल्यूज पॉजिटिव में होंगी एंड योर रिजल्ट विल बी इन पॉजिटिव. So if YED is greater than 0, which is positive, that means ये एक normal good है. I think I might be going into analysis over here, but because I have confusion, अगर analysis का हिस्सा होगा तो I'll get mark for analysis. Okay? But अगर knowledge and understanding का होगा तो I'll get mark for that. So what I'll do is I'll try to throw as many darts as possible, whatever I know about knowledge and understanding. तो नॉर्मल गुड क्या होता है? नॉर्मल गुड होता है जब आपकी इनकम बढ़ती है, डिमांड भी बढ़ती है, और जब इनकम गिरती है तो डिमांड भी गिरती है. सो आई पुट इट आउट देयर. आई नो आई एम राइटिंग टू मच बिकॉज आई हैव कंफ्यूजन कि ये किस तरह से मार्क देंगे इसके ऊपर. If the value is less than zero, which means it is negative, तो फिर उस केस के अंदर आई शुड सजेस्ट कि ये प्रोडक्ट इंफीरियर है. किस तरह से? लेट्स कम बैक टू माय फॉर्मूला ऊपर. If income goes up but demand goes down, a positive versus a negative will give me a negative value, because inferior goods क्या होते हैं? Please make sure that every time you mention a normal good or an inferior good, you should define them this way. Okay, if income goes up, the demand goes down, and if income goes down, then the demand goes up. I think I've written way too much over here. Lekin, it's very valid for my analysis that I should explain all of these things beforehand. अब मेरा जो question था, take let me take you back to the question. With the help of the formula, have I done the formula? Yes, I have. Explain the meaning of income elasticity of demand. Have I used the formula to explain it? I think I have. In a way, I have defined it. I have used uh, the formula to explain the meaning of elasticity. And what I've also done is I've also suggested what elastic means and inelastic means. I don't see much relevance of that. Now that I'm reading it, I don't see much relevance of elastic inelastic discussion, but you never know. The extent to which a rise in income, I haven't spoken specifically in terms of rise of income. I have mentioned some things over here, but मैंने अपने फॉर्मूले को कोई खास rise in income के साथ डिस्कस नहीं किया है. And I haven't really spoken in depth कि rise in income will increase the consumption for all goods. I have sort of talked about it over here, but what I'll do is let me have a much more clearer analysis over here of this so that I don't have any kind of problem in my AO2. Okay? So what I'll do over here is I'll say that if there is an increase in income, there is likely to be increase in demand for normal goods. Okay? Because in the case of normal goods, let me use my formula over here. You know how my formula is YED is equals to percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in income. So what I'll do is I'll explain it using my formula, and I'll say that if my income goes up by, say, 20% and the demand for the good rises by 40%, so I will get a value of +2. Okay? What this income elasticity ka plus represents is that this is a normal good, and I've used the formula to explain कि normal good में there is always a plus की value, a positive value. That if income goes up, the demand goes up. अब क्योंकि वो all good लिखा हुआ था, तो actually the catch was anytime they talk about incomes, I've spoken about this previously also, anytime they talk about income, you must talk about the other side, which is again income के point of view से if income rises, there is a possibility that some goods might actually experience a fall in the demand, and those goods are inferior goods. तो मैंने वो inferior goods actually ऊपर already explain किया हुआ है, you know. So I don't need to go over that explanation one more time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the formula to prove that कि अगर मेरी इनकम 20% ऊपर गई है, तो उसकी वजह से सपोज there is a 10% fall in the demand for a good and I get a negative 0.5 की value, where this negative basically proves that inferior goods have a negative value. Um, Anything else that I should have done? They haven't asked for an example of the good. Should I give an example of the good? नॉर्मली अगर ये प्री 2023 होता तो जब वेनेवर आई एक्सप्लेन अ नॉर्मल गुड ना, इसी एक्सप्लेनेशन के साथ ऊपर ही मैं इसके एग्जांपल जरूर दे देता, समथिंग लाइक ब्रांडेड क्लोथिंग्स। ओके। और इसके अंदर आई वुड हैव गिवन समथिंग लाइक अनब्रांडेड क्लोथिंग और समथिंग। इट्स अप टू यू। परफ्यूम वर्सेस डियो कर सकते हो, अनब्रांडेड क्लोथिंग, समथिंग along that line. Up, let me go back to the question. I think I have a much better answer now. I have talked about rising income से कुछ गुड्स की डिमांड बढ़ सकती है, कुछ की गिर सकती है। अब ये जो एक्सटेंट की डिस्कशन है, दिस वुड बी माय इवैल्यूएटिव डिस्कशन। नाउ दिस इज व्हाट आई वुड डू ओवर हियर। This is where I feel whether there is going to be a big increase or there's going to be a small increase. Maybe I would have talked about that over here. कि किस extent तक demand would increase and demand would actually fall. So I think that's where elasticity का discussion actually comes in. Um, but let me see the marking scheme once, because before I go into that, last thing I want to do is talk about something which is not there. Okay, so let's just make a comparison. This is a published marking scheme. So published marking scheme के अंदर what they have is accurate definition of income elasticity of demand. एक tick मिल जाएगा, that means एक mark. Accurate formula, we did the accurate formula. As long as you don't divide it by the price, we're good. And oh, look at that. Understanding of the difference between normal and inferior. So if you've done that definition, which we did, we do get a mark. ठीक हो गया? फिर उसके बाद analysis में they're saying normal goods have a positive value. एक मार्क आपको उसका मिल जाएगा. Use of a diagram or formula to show why an increase in income will increase. I think we did this. We used the formula and we showed कि income बढ़ेगा तो demand बढ़ जाएगा and you get a positive value. So this should be justified with an appropriate example. Oh, this is what they've done. I think मेरे ख्याल के अंदर हमने एग्जाम्पल को बहुत अच्छे से तो नहीं लिखा, तो मे बी आई माइट एक्चुअली लूज वन मार्क ओवर हियर बिकॉज मैंने एग्जाम्पल के साथ नहीं लिखा. Honestly, they did not even ask for an example. Now, this is what they do, honestly. एनालिसिस के अंदर एक्चुअली आई डिस्कस द इंफीरियर का, थिंकिंग के ये एनालिसिस में जाना चाहिए था, बट एक्चुअली वो एनालिसिस में नहीं गया, वो इवैल्यूएशन में चला गया. इफ यू लुक ओवर हियर, one mark for a valid explanation that if the good is inferior, then the demand for such a good will actually, if income rises, the demand for such a good will actually fall. तो हमको evaluation का mark मिल गया just in case, you know. So evaluation का दूसरा mark, as consumer adjust their spending habits and consumer more luxury goods, the second mark is for a justified conclusion. तो आई थिंक हमने जो यहाँ पे डिस्कशन किया है ना, वो एक्चुअली काफी हद तक तो इवैल्यूएशन के अंदर काउंट हो गया है. वन मार्क वेयर we're एक्चुअली लूजिंग इज कि मैंने ये जो एग्जाम्पल एक्सप्लेन की है ना, ये चीज जो मैंने एक्सप्लेन की है, व्हाट आई शुड हैव डन वाज, सिर्फ नॉर्मल गुड की जगह आई शुड हैव एक्चुअली टॉक्ड in terms of not just normal good, but also in terms of branded clothing. Okay. और evaluation के अंदर जो है, I should have talked about in terms of unbranded clothing के अंदर negative value आएगी and demand will not always rise. Honestly, what I would have done in my evaluation is this. I would have gone to an extent of answering how big of a difference can it actually bring. So this is what I would have done. ठीक है, अब गौर से देखो, ये मैं इनकम इलास्टिसिटी की आपको एक आइडिया समझा रहा हूं. होता क्या है, जब आपका YED का वैल्यू ग्रेटर देन 1 होता है, What that means is that the percentage change in quantity demanded is bigger than the percentage change in income. ठीक है? There's a much larger change in quantity happening. And assuming that this is positive, that means ये normal good है. Income goes up, demand goes up. Okay? But income अगर 20% rise कर रहा है, तो demand 40% rise कर रहा है. Okay? Versus a scenario where YED was less than 1. है positive, लेकिन less than 1 है. What that means is that the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than the percentage change in income. What that means is if income goes up by 20%, demand is only rising by 10%, not a much of a big difference. Do you see that? इसको आप एक्चुअली सेपरेट करते हो. ये दोनों जो हम लिख रहे हैं, ये दोनों नॉर्मल गुड्स में ही आता है, बिकॉज इफ इनकम गोज अप, डिमांड गोज अप, एंड दे बोथ आर पॉजिटिव. But the way we break it down is the first case is of a luxury good. Luxury कह लो या superior कह लो. There is a much larger increase that happens. And the other one is sort of like a necessity good. Okay, इनकम इलास्टिसिटी के अंदर भी आप नेसेसिटी गुड का डिस्कशन करते हैं. अगर उस गुड की वाईडी इज लेस देन 1, कि आपकी 20% इनकम बढ़ी लेकिन आपकी डिमांड में कोई खास इंक्रीज नहीं आया. So what that really means is that if my income goes up by 20%, my consumption of maybe bread, milk, meat is not going to rise by much, but just little. कि मेरा मीट का कंजम्पशन जो है हफ्ते में एक दिन मैंने और एक्स्ट्रा कर लिया, या डाइनिंग आउट मैंने एक्स्ट्रा कर लिया. नॉट एन एक्सपेंसिव वन, बल्कि मीट तक ही रखते हैं. मीट का कंजम्पशन मैंने बढ़ा दिया. आई एम ऑलरेडी डूइंग द नेसेसरी. मिल्क का कंजम्पशन भी ऐसे बढ़ा दिया, नॉट कि मैंने सुबह ज्यादा दूध पीना शुरू कर दिया. आई विल प्रोबब्ली कंज्यूम द अमाउंट ऑफ मिल्क दैट आई एम कंज्यूमिंग एनीवेज. बट मे बी मिल्क का कंजम्पशन क्या हो गया कि मे बी मिल्क बेस्ड कोई डिजर्ट एक्स्ट्रा बना लिया एक हाउस होल्ड ने. तो sort of like that sort of a increase will happen. The necessity consumption will still happen. लेकिन जो लक्ष्यरी बोल रहा है वो क्या बता रहा है कि if the income goes up, there's a much larger increase is happening. This can be like dining out. If my income goes up by 20%, my dining out might increase significantly as a result of that. ठीक है? So I would be more interested in going out and eating rather than eating. तो ये आई वुड हैव एक्चुअली, ये भी एक इवैल्यूएशन के अंदर एक अच्छा डिस्कशन बनता है, बिकॉज लिसन व्हाट द क्वेश्चन इज, कंसिडर द एक्सटेंट to which a rise in income will increase the consumption for all goods. The extent, तो ये extent को डिस्कस कर रहा है. और यहाँ पे मेरे ख्याल के अंदर इवैल्यूएशन का एक फाइनल एक डिस्कशन शुड बी डन ऑफ योर inferior. Sometimes, if YD is less than zero, it's negative. A rise in income can actually cause a fall in the demand. So therefore, a rise in income will not always increase consumption. So I'm doing actually more than what is required. I might actually take more time in it, but this is like one of those questions just that, you really have to throw in the darts and see which one sticks. It would be interesting to see I think if I look for it, I will be able to find it. The pre-standardization versus the post-standardization. ठीक हो गया. So this is one good questions that we can actually resort to and we can actually solve also. ठीक है.
You have to mention all the other cases,
What are the cases?
all three cases,
Yeah, I think you
normality.
should. Yeah, because without inferior now, you're not really answering the question all goods and services. So evaluation के अंदर you have to talk about the counter narrative also. और extent के अंदर the way I see is कि yeah, I think मेरे ख्याल में तो होना चाहिए. Inferior का discussion भी होना चाहिए. द गुड थिंग इज कि मे बी ऊपर आपने जब वो लंबी एक्सप्लेनेशन की ना कि उसके अंदर इंफीरियर और ये काउंट में आ गया होगा. Remember, evaluation is not so easy to get. You really have to impress the examiner to get marks for evaluation. Please don't treat evaluation as if you're writing a final conclusion. Evaluation is 2 marks. That's about 25% of your 8 marks, na? 2 out of 8 is about 25%. So treat it like a 25%. So you got to impress the examiner with that. Um, मेरे ख्याल के अंदर, because the way I am reading the marking scheme, it's very vague. It is saying कि you have to talk about inferior good or demand will rise. ये तो तुमको easy 1 mark मिल जाएगा. I'm thinking about the second mark. As consumer adjust their spending habits and consumer or consumes more normal luxury goods. I don't know what that really means. I think yeah, ये normal के अंदर luxury और necessity का जो discussion है ना, कि if income बढ़ती है तो maybe consumers might increase by a lot, maybe might not increase by a lot. I think that is your second mark right there. Yeah, I think you need to do that. You have to write about the inferior and you have to write about uh, necessity and luxury. ठीक हो गया? Okay.